We talk a lot about wage slavery. But frankly, that's a bit myopic. Today, we're going to discuss the other side of the story. Humans are primarily selfish. We're just built that way. Self-preservation is at the core of our very being. So when it comes to looking at how your time is used, specifically when it comes to the time you spend at your job every day, well, we tend to get angry at, the system and portray it as an evil entity we must resist at all costs. But if you shift your perspective just a bit and look at things from the other side, objectively, where you're the one trying to get something done and need the expertise of others, things become a little clearer. When you want someone to do something for you and you're paying for it, you want to get your money's worth, don't you? You want things to be done right, on time, and the way you want it. It's just value for your money. But let's swing the view around back to the worker bee for a second, and you have a view of not doing what you want to do, but you have to do in order to make the money to survive. So the problem isn't the employer. They just want to pay someone to do the things the way they want to get something done. And I assume you've agreed to the terms or you wouldn't be working there, right? So if the problem isn't the employer and you accepted the job for the money with the terms like be in a place at a certain time, doing certain things so we can make sure that we're getting what we paid for and the work gets done without time wasted, then what's the actual problem here? Well, the actual problem is that you need the money. You need money to feed yourself. You need money to shelter yourself. You need money to have a life. So how do you do that if you're not independently wealthy or have a clear path to a product or service you'd like to provide? Well, you need to provide a service to someone else in exchange for money. It's pretty much as simple as that. Essentially, you have to rely on someone else's rules for delivery. And therein lies the rub. You become reliant on someone else for your well-being. You're no longer in charge of your own comings and goings. You're forced by an invisible system to be indebted to someone else and their rules so you can pay for your rent, your mortgage, food, utilities, so you can be comfortable. Because of this, you eventually start to see your employer as a prison guard, rather than just someone like you looking to pay some folks for their help to get something out the door. The employer isn't the problem. Even the term wage slavery implies that the employer is the one with the whip, and in fact, you can walk away at any time. So, this isn't slavery in a traditional sense. I think the term should be wage dependency. That seems more accurate to me. We're dependent on a system that limits our time and mobility. What we, who are trapped in the system, crave isn't freedom from the chains and tyranny of our overlord employers. No, what we crave is autonomy. We crave the freedom of doing what we want, when we want, however we want. And if you haven't guessed it yet, that just doesn't work for someone like an employer trying to get a thing done in a certain way in a certain time with any level of consistency. So you see, the employers are not evil. Some are more granular in their expectations and demand more of their helpers in order to have a higher level of quality in their product or service. But for the most part, they'll do it themselves if they could. But depending on the scope and the scale of their business, they may have to rely on other people to get things done. Hopefully, they pay a good wage for the work being done, but that's a topic for another discussion and a topic for another day. It's all about perspective. You can see that employers are dependent on their workforce, and the workforce is dependent on the employers. It's a delicate balancing act. The problem is there is only one you, and the employers have access to a large number of individuals with the same needs and wants as you. So if you resist their ways of doing things, it's just easier to get someone else that's more compliant. So the scales are a little unbalanced, and that adds to the individual's reliance to conform, which in turn leads to the feeling of being trapped, and the cycle continues. In a perfect world, we could wake up without an alarm clock, grab our coffee, sit down, enjoy our morning newspaper, have another cup of coffee, maybe a bit of breakfast, and when the inspiration hits us, we can sit down and get some work done. We can take a break if we want, when we want. We can go for a hike and clear our head in nature, come back and work on the solutions that came to us while we were out walking. When you feel a bit tired and work is getting to you, you can call it quits and end your day when you want. To many, that'd be the ultimate goal, myself included. That whole scenario I just mentioned was based on autonomy. At this point in time, no employer would ever let you do that. Why? Because the majority of humans would abuse it or take advantage of the situation. Humans basically suck. It's ingrained in us to do as little as possible for the maximum return. Nature's about preserving energy because your primal lizard brain never knows when you'll have to bolt like a scared bunny rabbit to get away from something bad. While autonomy is the ultimate goal for everyone, only a small percentage of people can actually handle the responsibility. And that's exactly why employers have the rules we all resist so vehemently. The current workforce paradigm exists as a general cattle fence, if you will, to corral the herd to an end result. A small percentage of people, like yourself if you're watching this, probably don't need the general guidelines and would be uber productive if left to their own devices. This means allowing a small percentage the autonomy they crave in order to get a superior result. But this wouldn't go over well with the rest of the herd. So employers do some quick math and realize the generalized system suits the highest percentage for their needs, and the others are expected to comply even though they would likely be more productive in a more lax system. And that's exactly where the disconnect is for those of us who crave autonomy in our lives. So to wrap things up, let me say this. The system suits the highest percentage of the employer's requirements. The outliers, like us, the ones who thrive on autonomy, are acceptable breakage and seen as a disruption, which we are. We don't fit. The workforce system is tried, tested, and true. It's a generalized solution that gets the job done. It doesn't care how you feel. It only cares about delivery. And just to remind you, you would want the same thing if the tables were turned. So the employers are not the problem. The system is not the problem. You are not the problem. So what's the problem, you ask? Well, there is no problem. It's a matter of perspective. I've shown you that you would do exactly the same thing if you were the employer. You would demand the same level of quality, but from the worker's perspective, they don't want to be doing work. They want to live their lives. But they can't without conforming to a system which for all intents and purposes is unnatural. A shout out to the invention of the alarm clock, by the way. We need to eat. We need shelter. And we need comfort. That means we need to do things we don't want to do in exchange for the money to pay for these things. And around it goes. Is there an escape? Well, of course there is. In today's digital economy, there are many ways you can regain your autonomy. But I'm not going to lie to you. They all take time and effort. It ain't going to be easy, but you can do it. Just get started today. Take an hour a day and plot your exit. Then execute your plan. Most people can make it through the planning stage, but fall really short in the execution. Do something today to take one step closer to escaping the traditional system. Buy a camera to make YouTube videos. Grab a piece of paper and start writing a book. Do something today to take a step forward towards your goals. Do anything. Just do it, as Nike once said. If you take a step, you'll get somewhere. As always, this has been Over 40 with Duff. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment, follow, share, or even better yet, subscribe. It really helps out the channel. So until next time, remember to ask yourself, if not now, when?